but I felt like the documentary was a hit piece. So I felt like it was there just to talk bad about something that meant a lot to me, that changed my life, that saved my life. I knew they were filming a TV show, and I knew that going into it.
What did you think about the criticism of Jillian Michaels?
As far as I could tell, she wasn't a bad person.
Kind of how did you end up getting signed as an artist?
So we started playing 3 and 4 shows a week in town, and then 2 and 3 shows a week out of town. And one night, Toby Keith walked into the bar and saw us. We went in and hung out with him all night long, and he's like, "Yeah, I like y'all." He goes, "I'd like to see y'all again." He goes, "I think I'd like to sign y'all to my label." And I'm like, whoa. Toby, at that point in time, I think he was making more money than even Jay-Z.
What was Toby Keith like?
Oh, man. I get emotional talking about it. He changed my life.
Welcome to the podcast, Bigg Vinny. Happy to have you on, brother.
Glad to be here. Bigger and better than ever,
Every time I walk into Walmart, I think of you now.
Hey, listen, when you get in there and get your Walmart drip going, feeling good about yourself, it just keeps everything going. There's nothing you can't find in there. Honestly, you can get anything. Now they got Walmart Plus. So that's even better. And I'm not even paid by Walmart to say that. I just love them that much.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and do some plugging up top and plug the song.
Yeah, y'all go check out Walmart Drip. It's on every streaming platform. It's my number one best, since Trailer Choir. But my best performing song so far. People seem to love it and have fun listening to it. The music videos at like 340,000 or something like that views in 2 months. So it's going well. I've been excited about it, and to see people's reaction. I thought I would get more hate for it. I thought there would be more people that would be mad about it. Like, this ain't country or whatever. But I haven't got that. I've got people like, "Oh, this is funny," or "Oh, this is fun," or "Oh man, I did that at one. I buy that same thing." So I was happy about that, but also a little upset because I want it to be viral. So to be viral, you got to have some people hate it.
Well, you know what, with music for me, and I went through a phase in my life where I needed all music to be, something of great depth and something that really touched the heart. There's a place for everything in music. There's a place to have fun, and that's what Walmart Drip is. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's just a good time, and that's what it was meant for. It was meant to be like, hey, I'm a dude that's 40 years old. I go into Walmart. I spend $500 a week there, probably buying everything from groceries to, the kids' birthday party gifts to whatever. My wife is in there. She's like, I need, some new mascara or lip liner or whatever. You can just get everything in there. So it was just fun. It was one of those deals where me and my wife were sitting out back. We were going to watch that eclipse, and we didn't have the eclipse glasses. So she's like, hey, we need to go to Walmart. And it's actually a true story. Everybody thinks it's a joke, but we were sitting there. I said, listen, when we get in here, we ain't buying nothing but those glasses. And she goes, I need to get a few things. And I literally was kind of pouting because I knew he was going to spend $500. And I got in there. I see this swimsuit over there, and it was a Snoop Dogg swimsuit. It had like Miami Beach sunset, and it was like a net jersey and a throwback, had the little chubby shorts come halfway down your legs. So I was like, man, I said, I'm going to get that thing. I put it on. I started going, dang, girl, you get all this drip. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, my drip, my fit, girl. I said, that's what all the kids on TikTok are calling their outfits now, their drip. And she said, you're 40 years old. I said, I know, but I'm feeling retired today, baby. And it kind of just turned into the song from there. I started singing Walmart drip from my hit. The next thing she's like, go inside and write that. It's the dumbest thing you ever come up with. Probably be a big old hit. So,
bro, when you leave Walmart with some swag, like, feeling it in your step,
oh, yeah.
That's when you got the confidence you need, baby.
Got you some new cologne, deodorant. You're like, yeah, that smells good. When you first start wearing a new deodorant, you can smell it better because you ain't used to smelling that smell. And then after a couple of days, you're like, oh, it just smells like your regular,
Well, listen, I wanted to early on go ahead and talk about this documentary, The Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
You were a contestant. So just take me through your initial thoughts on this documentary.
I always want to be open and watch anybody's opinion of what their journey was. But I felt like the documentary was a hit piece. Somebody, and at the end of it, it kind of comes out that they're like, oh, Ozempic is what we're doing now, So I kind of feel like Ozempic or somebody in that realm had, something to benefit from that, which is fine. Like I said, I think that a lot of people use Ozempic, and if they choose to do that, that's their decision. But I just felt like it was a hit piece. I felt like it was there just to talk bad about something that meant a lot to me, that changed my life, that saved my life. So not discounting their journey at all, the people that were on there that, I hate the word journey anyways, but their life and their story. It's not to discount that, but it's just to say that in my world, in my journey, on my adventure through The Biggest Loser, it wasn't like that. I felt very cared for, very loved. I knew they were filming a TV show, and I knew that going into it. but I mean, I felt like we had doctors there every day and people that cared for us. We had a head doctor that was on set at all times. We could talk to him anytime we wanted. His name was Dr. Chris Hogan. Great guy, called him Hulk all the time. But no, I felt like it was a great show, and I felt like the show did a great thing for me and a lot of other people. I feel like it saved lives. I feel like it's changed lives. I feel like it's not just the people that's been on it, but there's probably a lot of people out there that would have the same stories. Like, man, I started watching that show, and I was sitting there eating my bag of donuts, and then said, you know what? If they're going to get up there and do it, then why can't I get up and do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, just watching the documentary, it got me a little bit of that ownership mentality, that little bit of like pride of like, wait a second, this thing helped save my life. So if you're going to tell the bad side of it, which I think, there's some legitimate things there that probably they learned along the way, like, hey, we can't do that, or we need to change this, like anything that you're getting into. But at the end of the day, it was a TV show, and I think people were expected the show to take care of them forever. Well, like they gave you a massive, quick education, 6 months education on how to lose weight, exercise, eat right, macros, all the different things, what foods are actually good for you. How does the endocrine system work? I mean, we learned all that stuff. How do certain supplements, metabolize in the body? When should you eat carbs and fiber and fat and protein? Like we learned all that stuff. And so, and of course, all that stuff is relative because every human body is different. Certain bodies that react differently than other ones. You even go back to like Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of my all-time favorite, action heroes or whatever. He could train at such a high volume, and his body reacted good to it. But when other people tried to train with that kind of volume, it actually made their muscles shrink and made their strength get less, and it hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
He had a genetic part in his body that recovered super fast to those hardcore, high intensity, high volume rep workouts, and other people have that too. He just the most famous one to have that. So different body types, different body styles, different blood types, all those things can take place in your system, and your hormones and different things can take place in your system and change the way that your body reacts to something that somebody else's might react a different way.
What did you think about the criticism of Jillian Michaels? Because I felt like they were really reaching hard to go after her.
Yeah, I mean, definitely felt that way. I think Jillian wasn't on my season. I had Anna Kournikova, which didn't suck. I had Anna
Oh, that doesn't suck
Kournikova.
at all.
Yeah, I had Anna Kournikova on my season as the female trainer, and we had Dolvet his first year, and we had Bob. I felt like the rumor around when we were there was that her and Dr. Hazenga had some differences on what they wanted to do on the show, what they were permitting on the show. And when we got there, they handed us a card and had your number on it. Said this is how many calories minimum you have to eat a day. Mine was 2,400 was my minimum, and it was 30. It was a 45% carbs, 35% protein, and 20% good fat. Which I'm under. I think most all fats are pretty good, but
Yeah, no kidding.
but yeah. So I mean, we were given that. We were never allowed to have any kind of caffeine pills. We were only allowed to drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning. So it was very watched on our season. That thing wasn't part of our season. The caffeine pills were never part of our season. I think there was one supplement that got in the house our season that had some caffeine in it, and it was less than a cup of coffee. It was like a piece of gum or something, and it got removed right away. And it wasn't something we were told to take or asked to take. It was just, like, hey, if you don't like coffee, here's, a caffeine supplement. If you don't want to drink a cup of coffee, you can chew this. I hated coffee. However, I did learn how to drink coffee on the show to help everything get moving in the morning, get the fiber in your stomach, all that good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So, we didn't have all that. As far as Jillian goes, I only met her one time. I didn't have a bad meeting with her. I didn't have a good meeting with her. It was just kind of a quick thing at a spin class that Bob was teaching. And at the time, I think her and Bob were getting along just fine. It seems like maybe their relationship kind of tethered a different way after some seasons and some other things. But as far as I could tell, she wasn't a bad person. She just had her different opinion.
Let me ask you, when you started the show, what was your weight?
I started, so that year I was at over 500 pounds whenever I decided I needed to lose weight because I was in the hospital. But I had lost about 70 something pounds before I got to the show. And then I lost another
Mm-hmm.
20. I was at 426 when I got on the show, and 242 maybe at the end. I lost 184 pounds, I think, on the show. And then I lost 258 pounds total that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you credit the show with your weight loss, as simple as that question might be?
Oh yeah, 100%. I had tried lose. I had lost weight before. I'd lost 50 or 60 pounds before with my buddy Keith Johnson, who had kind of got me into it. He just came to me one day. It's no joke. This one, you got a real friend. He came to me. He's like, "Hey, bud, I need to talk to you. You need to lose weight, or you're gonna die." I mean, it was that blunt. And I got mad at him. I was like, dude, I got a record deal. I got a hot girl. I got all these other things. Now, who are you to tell me, anything? And that was back in 2010 because it was right before the flood. And so I kind of, got mad at him. And then, I went in my roommate's room, after he had left, because he was my buddy, but he didn't live with us. And I said, can you believe he said this to me? He said, sounds like you got a good friend, Vinny. He goes, I love you. He goes, I wouldn't have the balls to say that to you, but just so you know, I think you need to lose weight too. And so I had actually lost like 50 or 60 pounds with him. And then the flood happened, but he was a safety engineer. So he got called down to the oil spill, the BP oil spill, to go down there and fix that. And so when he left, I just kind of stopped doing everything, started eating the
Mm-hmm.
same way again, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the show showed me how to do it, taught me the right things. It's helped me, I've kept my weight off, not 100% of my weight, but I'd say probably about 90% of the fat that I lost. I've gained a megaton of muscle over the past 14, 15 years, and really changed my life. But it gave me an education on what's good, what's bad, for my individual body, and I was able to be out there and test that out for 6 months. I guess I was there for 4.5 months that I didn't leave, the show. I was out in Calabasas at the King Gillette Ranch, like Gillette razors. And, I got educated every day. I got to test stuff out. I
Mm-hmm.
got to see what worked for my body. How much walking. There was things I went through. I had rhabdomyolysis when I was on the show, which was uncommon, but it basically is where your organs begin to shut down because you're overworked. That's a very simple explanation for it. I'm not an expert in that field at all, but they just made it to where, hey, you can just eat right and you can walk every day, but you can't do any kind of strenuous workouts. And then so I literally would just walk a couple miles a day and then eat right, and I still lost 5 or 6 pounds that week just doing that. So, like I said, I felt like it was a huge advantage to get to be on the show, and I give them all the credit in the world for what they taught me and the education and just the good folks that I met while I was on the show. I mean, I made some of my lifelong friends on that show.
That's awesome. See, I feel like the show, and I didn't watch it a lot when it was on, but I felt like in rewatching the documentary and remembering some of the episodes I had
Yeah,
seen, it was a situation where if you take advantage of what you're watching from your couch, you're learning that it is possible if you're in need of a health journey.
100%. And then that's one of the things. I mean, I've seen a lot of people on the internet give their opinion on it, and they're like, "Oh, well, those temptation challenges are awful. That's going against people's mental health." I'm like, guys, in the real world, you face temptation every single day. So to
Every
me, the
day.
temptation challenge was one of the best challenges there was because it's like, man, I love donuts. And on our season, we had this thing. They had these little mini donuts, and whoever ate the most donuts would get to choose what time the other teams worked out.
Hmm.
And of course, they put us, the young kids, they put us late at night. We wanted early. Everybody wanted early in the morning to go ahead and get it done. But they put us late at night. We weren't allowed in the gym until like 10 o'clock at night, which a lot of people that work certain shifts don't get to go in the gym until 10 o'clock at night. They don't get their workout in until then. So, that's real life as well. But those temptation challenges, every day you pass by fast food, every day you pass by Dunkin' Donuts or a Krispy Kreme, every day you pass by your favorite spot to eat, and it's up to you to fight off that temptation. So I felt like the
That's
temptations
right.
to me was like, hey, I need to be tempted. I need to show that I can build the willpower to say no to that stuff, even when there's something good at it. Because, at the end of the day, if it's something that's tempting to you, if it's something you enjoy, the temptation is, man, I love the way that tastes. That gives me that dopamine inside my brain to make me feel good. And so having to fight that off and tell yourself no, I think is equivalent, to somebody that's addicted to alcohol or drugs or anything else. And it's like that's what they're doing to try and fight off their pain. They're, to give them a happiness for a short amount of time to let that dopamine hit their brain and say, hey, okay, now you feel better for a little bit. So learning how to tell yourself no and find a different way, whether it be working out, I mean, I think you never really get rid of addiction. You just replace it with another addiction. And for me now,
That's
it's like
right.
I love to work out. I love lifting weights, and sometimes I lift too much. Sometimes I lift too heavy. Sometimes I put myself at risk in a different way, So it's a lot healthier than I think than eating terrible food every day, all day. And it took me about 5 years after the show to really get my mind to where I was like, okay, you can have a piece of cake at a birthday party. You can have a slice of pizza every once in a while. You can have some ice cream, with going on a date. It took me 5 years to really cope with that because I was so scared to gain the weight back. And not because of something the show told me. The show told me like, hey, you've done a great job. We're proud of you. They, of course, they sent me on some runs because on our season, I was kind of America's sweetheart. You know, my story was kind of one of those. It was like a sad, but also an overcoming story. So the day after, they actually flew me to New York, and I did a lot of press right behind the actual winner of our season, just because kind of I tested well on TV and all that stuff. So they flew me out to New York, and I did. I can't remember, it's NBC's morning show. It was like Better TV or something. I can't remember what it was called at the time, but I did several of those things. I got to do Howard Stern, but it never aired, which was unfortunate because I was really excited about that one. Which he basically just made fun of me the whole time, which was fine with me. I was like, it's Howard Stern. So I got that experience, even though I think he just did it for my publicist because he never actually came out with it. But anyway, like I said, it was a great experience for me, and I don't take it for granted. It's been a factor that's helped me stay on for all these years of like, hey man, you got an opportunity that not a lot of people get. You got a special opportunity that God gave you and put you in a place where you could go and have this time to yourself. And it cost me my house. I mean, like you don't make any money on there. And so a guy like me that was used to making two or $350,000+ a year, because Shredder Choir was doing huge at the time when I left for that show. So for a guy like me that was used to making that, all of a sudden to go to making nothing, my bills were set to, pretty high amount because I was making such good money I could afford it. And so I had to be okay with losing stuff. And I was. I said, you know what? I don't care if I lose everything if I can get my health back. Because let me tell you something. Once you have a health problem, you don't have any other problems. It don't matter what your finances are. If you have a health problem, if you're laying in a hospital bed, it doesn't matter if you're making money or not. I was like, you're just laying there.
Yeah.
So, a health problem will make every other problem seem like it's nothing. And so they always say your health is your wealth. And I truly believe that's a factual statement. The richest
That's
man
right.
in the world gets cancer. I mean, Steve Jobs, you know what I mean? I think it was cancer that got him, but the richest man in the world gets cancer,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter how much money he had, he couldn't solve it.
Yeah. That's right.
So,
Um, it's funny when you just said so I've been in recovery for 6 years. I used to be a really bad addict.
yeah.
And I blew up to like when I got in recovery, I blew up to like 260.
Oh yeah.
And I'll put up the before picture here because I'm on my own health journey the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you look great.
But it's funny, my buddy, which to your point, when you're talking about your friend earlier, when you need good friends, because that's what The Biggest Loser was. The Biggest Loser was a show that held you accountable and told you the truth if you were a
100%.
contestant.
Told you the truth.
I saw my buddy one day, and then he texted me later that day. This was during COVID, and he said, "You better get the vax." And I wrote back, like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Obesity. You're a little obese." And man,
Yeah.
that freaking set me off. I went on keto, lost 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Now I'm on this 100,000 push-up journey in 12 months, and I just hit 65 in 6 months.
That's great.
So I love talking to people about their health journey. I have to tell you something, and I want people to know something about you for those that are listening to this. So I barely knew Bigg Vinny. I had just met him at the CMA Fest, and I started telling him about this journey I was on with 100K push-ups. And you reminded me that day of Joey Swole. Do you know who that is?
Oh yeah, I love Joey Swole.
Okay.
He got some controversy about a week or two ago.
About a week or two ago.
A good dude. His heart's good.
That's why he got so upset about it, is because he's obviously a sensitive guy.
Yeah, he's such a good guy.
But I had my Joey Swole moment with you, and I want people to know kind of the way you conduct yourself with someone you don't even know. I told you that day, I said I was about 20,000 push-ups in at that moment, or probably 15. And I said, man, Bigg, I can't do 50 at once. I'm doing hundreds a day, but I'm still not getting to where I can do 50 in a set. And you go, oh, but you're doing hundreds every day. So don't even worry about that. Is that what is what you said to me? But I want people to understand, like when you get around someone like Bigg Vinny, how important this is. When you're trying your best, but you feel like you're not doing as good as others, when you have someone positive that you come into with Bigg, like I ran into Bigg Vinny, he told me about The Biggest Loser. He told me about his health journey. So I kind of confided to him and told him where I thought my shortcomings were going. And he didn't make fun of me. He just said, oh man, dude, a few more months, you'll be knocking out 50, no problem.
Yeah. Now you're probably knocking out 50, no problem.
Yeah, I am. But it was one of those things where in the health journey, you need to run into people around you that are a form of positivity and don't knock you when you kind of try to confide in them and say, well, here's where I'd feel like I need to get better. It's like, okay, you're going to get better. Don't knock yourself for what you can't do yet.
Yeah, I think so many people they're waiting for that perfect moment to start. They're waiting for that. Well, when I get the kids in school again, or when this goes on, or maybe let me get down 10 pounds before I start lifting weights. Like all those things, there's never going to be an exact perfect moment, So the thing I've always heard, and I didn't come up with this saying, I wish I did, but it said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start if you ever want to be great.
That's right.
And I've kind of lived by that. Like, I used to run before I tore out my ankle. I tore out my ankle about in 2019. And of course, because of COVID, I actually ended up not getting the surgery until 2023 because they wouldn't do the surgery during COVID. And then I just got used to walking on it and kind of did my own thing. And like us guys do, it's like, I can get around, so I'll be fine. But I finally got the surgery done. Well, I used to run about 3 miles a day. And I wasn't a runner. I didn't consider myself a runner. It was literally like a peaceful moment for me to put my headphones on, go out for 45 minutes. I didn't run fast. I run, 4, 5, 6 miles an hour, little intervals and stuff like that. But it gave me a chance to kind of get in my thoughts and focus on myself or listen to a podcast or all that kind of stuff. And, I got to where I kind of counted on that. Well, then all of a sudden I get hurt and I couldn't run anymore. And the other day, it's just prime example of how we're always on this perpetual kind of journey or whatever you want to call it. I was outside at 4:35. No, I guess I got up at 4:30, did my training. So it was probably 5:45, something like that. And I was outside walking. The sun was just starting to come up, and I'm like, I looked and there's like 3 mailboxes ahead, and I'm like, I wonder if I could jog to that third mailbox. And I took off jogging, probably about 4.5, 5 miles an hour, not fast. And I jog and I make it all the way to the mailbox, and I'm like, well, my ankle held up pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Did all right. So I wasn't dumb enough to be like, oh, let me just go ahead and run the entire time because I know my lungs are in good enough shape and my head's in good enough shape, but my ankle still got a ways to go. So then I waited, walked for about a minute, and then I ran three or four more mailboxes. Then I walked for a minute and ran 3 or 4 more mailboxes. So by the time it was all done, I probably ran a mile during that because I walked for, I don't know, remember 45 minutes or so. I probably ran a total of a mile, and I didn't think I could run anymore, but I was actually able to run. And now every morning, whenever I'm out doing my walks, I just go ahead and say, okay, let me get 3 mailboxes in. Let me get 4 mailboxes in. But if I literally looked and said, man, I can't run anymore, and I never try anything, I never do just enough. Like I said, used to 3 miles was no problem for me. I ran a marathon on The Biggest Loser. So that was something I've done before. So this has, running 3 mailboxes seems like nothing. Just like with your push-ups, like, man, if I can only get 10 push-ups in, good real push-ups, that's the other thing too, is I'm sure you're, I can tell you're the kind of guy that don't cheat yourself. You're like, no, I want to do full-on push-ups, not little quarter reps or nothing like that.
I don't.
And yeah, I'm the same way. Like I extend all the way up and all the way down. Of course, for me, I don't have to go quite down as far as you. I got a lot more in the way. But no, I mean, I'm glad you said that, man. If I don't do anything else in my life, if I can be a positive, light on somebody else's life, whether it be through my story or my actions or how I treat somebody that I don't know, that's really to me what is a successful life. It ain't about how much money is in the bank. It's about what is it? Ain't what you take when you leave this world behind you. It's what you leave behind you when you go.
That's right. Well, I know, that's one way for me to tell the audience about what kind of person you are behind the scenes, but also to just offer my gratitude to you for like giving me that moment where I was just like, yeah, I wish I could do more. And you're like, man, you're going to be fine. Just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, not very many people take on a challenge of doing 100,000 push-ups a year. I think I told you that day. My wife's doing 25,000 this year.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, about 2 years ago, my wife had discovered that her implant, she was a bodybuilding champion, her implant had ruptured, but it was inside the capsule, so they didn't know. And for about 2.5 years, she was sick, like deathly sick.
Oh, gosh.
And so they had to cut through the muscles and everything else in order to, take the implants out and clean it out and all this other kind of stuff. So, when she first come back, this was a girl that could rep out 100 push-ups without stopping. Like she's a real deal. I mean, and she's a third-degree world champion black belt in Taekwondo, pound for pound, the strongest person I've ever met. And all of a sudden she couldn't do one push-up. And so she did one at a time, then 2 at a time, then 3 at a time, 4 at a time. Now she's repping out 100, 150, 200 a day, and she's on track to actually smash. I mean, her original goal was 25,000 for the year this year, but now she's on track to smash that. I mean, I don't know what she'll end up at, but I think she's at 18 or 19,000 already.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, and she's repping out. And like I said in the beginning, she'd do 100, and man, her shoulders, her back, her chest, everything would be hurting the next day. Now it's like, yeah, she goes, yeah, I just did 50, and she goes, I'll probably do another 50 here in a minute. I'll probably do another 50 tonight before I go to bed. So it's just, she's getting. Now we did the Murph challenge, this year, and that was the first time I think she did 200 in a day when we did the Murph challenge. So and she crushed it, and she beat me by like 5 minutes. Whatever, it's fine. I don't care. I'm not jealous.
That's okay. What's the Murph challenge?
Okay, so the Murph challenge on Memorial Day, you got to do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, but you start with a mile run and you end with a mile run. So you do the
Oh
mile run, then
boy.
the 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 body squats, and then run a mile again. For me, because my running is off, so I did rower for a mile, and then did my series of push-ups, setups, and I did it. I made such a better idea this year. Used to, I'd only do one exercise at a time. So I do all 100 pull-ups before I would start. So it might be 3 at a time, 5 at a time. I start off around 10 at a time, and then I got to use a band, and all that kind of stuff. I try not to do kipping pull-ups because I could do 10 kipping pull-ups, but then at the end of it, my shoulders are on fire. So I'll use a little band, and then I'll increase the band as I got to go. Because at the end of the day, if I'm doing my best, that's all that matters. I don't compare myself to other folks, other than
Right.
my wife, because she's better than me at everything. But then the push-ups. Of course, so what I started doing was I do 10 pull-ups, 25 push-ups, 50 squats, and I continued that until I got all of them done. Through I had to do 100, 200, and 300, and all that. But the Murph challenge, yes, it was a soldier. I don't remember if he was a Marine or not, but he was armed forces. It was done for him. It was his workout or something like that. I'd have to look it all up. But on Memorial Day, people do it in kind of as a remembrance to him and everything else. The guy Murph that did that challenge.
Is that Michael Murphy? Maybe
Maybe.
that would be the guy from Lone Survivor if it is. But
Oh, maybe that's what it is then. Yeah.
okay,
I
interesting.
don't
I'm
know the
not.
whole thing. I just know every Memorial Day, my wife said, "Hey, we're doing the Murph challenge." I said, "Okay," and every time I'm like, "I'm going to beat you this time," and every time I don't. So
What resistance do you use when you do the pull-ups? When you start and then
So I
finish?
start off
What
with
is?
just a regular red band, and I can
Yeah.
get about 10 on my first set with that. And I can do 3 pull-ups with no assistance, which is not bad. So a lot of times I will start with just doing that. I keep thinking that's going to increase, but then number 4 just don't go yet. But I do a little bit every day. And then by the end of it, I have the probably the one big band. I don't. It's mine's gray, but other people's might be a different color. But I think it takes maybe 100 pounds of resistance off of you, basically.
Oh wow. The guys on my text thread that we have, we're all doing a program, and they're all doing the pull-ups with the bands, and I haven't started it yet, but I'm sure I'll get there.
Yeah, I enjoy it, and once I learned how to activate the muscles the right way, how to use my lats, how to use the my back pull first, and then my hands, or my biceps and stuff, and I try to do mine with wide grip, regular pull ups. Sometimes I will go chin ups, and stuff like that, but I try to keep mine just regular old pull ups.
So let me. So you just told me the Murph challenge. Let me tell you the challenge I'm doing in 2 days because we're filming this on 9/9. I've created. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody doing it, but just since I'm in the middle of doing all these push-ups, I'm doing the 9/11 challenge. 911 push-ups in 102 minutes.
Ooh.
It's gonna be fun.
You doing them all regular push ups? You're gonna hit the knee some.
Oh, regular push-ups.
Golly, it's gonna be tough. I think you can do it though.
I worked on it this morning. 700 in 1 hour, doing basically 10 every minute.
Yeah.
Because 102 minutes is how long it lasted. Basically, 9/11 lasted from the
Wow.
first plane hitting to the last tower going down.
Man, see, I might try it with you. I did chest yesterday. I do heavy bench is one of the lifts that I still do pretty heavy on, and I got pretty wore out, but I should be recovered by then. I might try to do that with you. That's a cool challenge. I
Yeah,
think if I
tell
can
your
do,
wife.
I mean, I might, so 102 minutes. That's an hour,
And 40. That's an hour and 42 minutes.
hour and 42 minutes. Okay, 911 push-ups. All right, I'm gonna see if I can do it with you.
Oh hell yeah, man! If you do, you send me the picture. I'm gonna post it on social
Yeah,
media.
I'll be laying there about half dead. But if I just do that, if I do 10 every minute, then I should be able to. I mean, I know for sure I can do 10 every minute. In fact, the first time I ever did uh, my fastest set, or no, it was whenever I was 10 years off of Biggest Loser. I'm like, I'm going to do 100 push-ups, 10 for every year that I've been off, and I wanted to do it as fast as I could. I think it took me a minute and 28 seconds to do 100 push-ups, but I would do 10, rest for about 3 or 4 seconds, do 10, rest for 3 or 4 seconds, do
Mm-hmm.
10. And I did it like that. And at the end, I think I just, to get them done, I ripped out like 20 at the end just to, try to get it in under a minute and 30. I think it was a minute and 28 or something like that I hit it. So I
That's
posted it
killer,
on
man.
TikTok, so it's on there somewhere.
I have to throw in my little wrinkle before we move on. So I'm going to be setting the treadmill at incline 12 and walking at 3 miles per hour, jumping off every 30 seconds. So I am going to add the treadmill to it.
Oh, here we go. Now you got to add the treadmill.
No. Do it however you want. Do it however you want.
Yeah.
That's not part of the challenge. That's just what I'm doing to keep time going in between push-up sets.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that at all. I love active recovery. That used to be the only way I really trained, and now that when I started doing strongman and lifting heavier, powerlifting, things like that, I let my body completely recover and get all my oxygen back and everything else before I did the next set. But used to, whenever I was training just to lose weight and for bodybuilding and stuff, I actually never did more than a 30 to 45 second in between, and I would march in place, or sometimes I would jump rope or whatever in between that, and I would do active recovery. And honestly, it felt good. You got done, you were drenched in sweat, so you felt like you did more. But I do want to let y'all know that just because you're drenched in sweat and then you feel like you're about to fall over does not actually mean you got the better training in. It all depends on what your goals are. Now, if you're training for endurance and you're training for performance and things like that, pushing yourself to those limits are huge. But if you're training for maximum strength and things like that, doing sets of 3 to 5 with as heavy as you can go, taking 2 and 3 minutes in between, 4 minutes. Some people take 5 minutes. They used to be, there used to be the joke like that big old dude's over there reading the newspaper. That's what he did to make sure he got his full 5 minutes in between sets.
Yes. So I hope people just paid attention to what you said very closely, because you just laid out some very important knowledge. Because when we talk about training in zone 4, zone 5, it's not always the most important aspect. That's for the endurance athletes.
It's for people that, and listen, I do HIIT training once a week, and I push myself. I got my Echo bike, dude. I get on that thing and I do 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off, and I go as hard as I can. When I say as hard as I can, when I finish, my hamstrings feel like they're about to fall off. My chest is pumping, and I'm so out of breath after that 20 seconds. A lot of people don't realize you don't got to go a full minute. You can't even sprint for a full minute. Most people can't sprint for longer than, I think it's 8 seconds at their top speed, and then the glycogen runs out and you start kind of slowing down a little bit. I think even at I think it's at 75 yards or something like that. Even the greatest sprinters in the world, after 75 yards, gets to where they got to pull back some, and like a pull back, and then I'll go like that and go more. But yeah, at your absolute full, hard as you can go sprint, you can only last about 75 yards in a running sprint, and then I think it's 7 or 8 seconds if you're going as hard as you possibly can, that you can maintain that for the entire time. So, and I do 20 seconds just because it keeps my mind focused. Like, I got to hit that 20. I got to hit that 20.
Man, dude, I love talking. This was like CMA Fest. I love listening to your knowledge, because you kind of inspire me to kind of how to approach my workups. Everyone that I have coming up.
Man, I love learning all the different styles of training. And it's one of the things. I actually had this idea for a TV show called Training Day, and I thought I'd make it Training Week, but I want it to be where you take regular everyday people, whatever, that's never really trained a whole lot, or even you take certain athletes that have trained a lot, but then you put them in different types of training. So you take guys that have been MMA, training, and they got to go do football camp, and you take football campers and they got to go do soccer, and you take a basketball player and he's got to go do baseball, and you take a power lifter and he's got to go do CrossFit, like mixing it up, and then you go through each one of those and kind of see like how does certain people cross over into other types of training. I don't know. I thought that'd be cool, but I've tried a little bit of everything. I've done CrossFit. I've done plenty of HIIT training. I've done boot camp classes. I've done the Orange Theories and all the stuff with my wife. I've done body pump, which actually made me the most sore of anything I've ever done, is that Les Mills body pump. My wife, when we first started dating, she was running the body pump class at the YMCA, and she invited me to come in. Well, the bar only goes up to like 75 pounds total in that class. So I put on all the weight. I'm like, 75 pounds is nothing for me. Well, when you do 5 straight minutes and you never take the tension off the muscle, I went through and I did the entire class, and I kept that 75 pounds on, fighting it. And I didn't want to let anybody see, because it was me and a bunch of women in there, and my wife, who became my wife at the time. She was just my girl I was dating, but she was at the front of the class. So I'm like, I'm not going to let anybody, dude. I'm telling you, for the next 4 days, I walked around so sore I couldn't sit down on the toilet by myself. I called her. I was like, she goes, "Are you coming back to body pump?" It was 2 days later. I'm like, no. I said, I can't even get out of my dang chair. I was like, I'm sore as I've ever been. So I learned a valuable lesson. You don't have to use your ego all the time. So
Your audio cut out. Were you saying a 75-pound weight vest?
no, it's a 75. It's just a bar that has 75 pounds on it. So
Oh, gotcha,
once
gotcha.
that little bar that they have, it's like a little, almost like a curl bar. But you can only put up, if you put the biggest weight you can put on it, it'll only hold 3 on each side. So it ends up being 75 total pounds when you count the bar. So
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk to you about your music career also, because we talk a lot of country music on this dang
yeah.
podcast, and so I was interested to pick your brain. So the band that you used to be in, kind of, how did you end up getting signed as an artist, and what the choir? What was it called?
Called the
Trailer
Trailer
choir.
Choir. Man, we were a frat party band. We were out just playing frat parties to make money, and we got to where we started off getting 700-800 bucks a night, and we had worked our way up to where we were so wanted especially in the SEC. We played a lot of SEC schools, stayed in the Southeast. But we got to where we were making $3,500 to $5,000 a night for these frat parties, it was us, the Velcro Pygmies, Super T, and there was one other band that did pretty good back then. That was that,
I like the
and we
pygmies.
were the only one that was really predominantly country. Even though people called us like the Bare Naked Ladies of country, or the Smash Mouth of country, or Black Eyed Peas of country, whatever. Um, we were just different, but we were playing, and we every week we thought, well, they say you got to be in the right place at the right time. So if we're more places, more times, we're more likely to be in the right place at the right time. So we started
Hmm.
playing 3 and 4 shows a week in town, and then 2 and 3 shows a week out of town. And one night, Toby Keith walked into the bar and saw us. We were playing a thing called the Billy Block Show, and our buddy Bobby Pinson, who's a big time songwriter here in Nashville, had seen us, and we had actually rented his. He had made a little bus truck that you could rent. That was a moving truck that he had turned into a tour bus. And so we started renting that thing to go out, and he came out with us on the road and saw us do a frat party. So when Toby was in town writing songs with him, he said, "Hey, you got to go see this band called the Trailer Choir at the Billy Block Show." Of course, everybody loved Billy Block. So sure enough, we get done playing that night, and they're like, "Hey, Toby Keith's in the back of the bar, and he wants to meet you." I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure." Toby Keith, like the man who was the biggest star in the world at the time. There was nobody bigger than Toby Keith in 2006, and this was
Hmm.
December of 2006. And sure enough, we walked back there, and he was standing there, and he goes, "Hey, Hoss," or no, "Hey, Biggin, hey, Biggin, y'all write them songs?" I said, "Yes, sir." He's like, "Cool, y'all want to come hang out with me at Losers tonight?" And I said, "Yep." We had to leave the next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning to make it to Wofford College in South Carolina to go do a frat party. We carried our own PA gear. We set it all up. We ran our sound from the stage. We had no clue what it sounded like out there. We didn't have iPads back then. So,
Hmm.
anyways, but sure enough, we went in and hung out with him all night long. And he's like, "Yeah, I like y'all." He goes, "I'd like to see y'all again." He goes, "I think I'd like to sign y'all to my label." And I'm like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Well, sure enough, we don't really hear nothing from them. They call us up. Probably a week before CRS that next year in 2007, and said, "Hey, Toby's going to be in town. Do y'all got any shows? He'd like to bring some people to see y'all." And we said, "Heck yeah, we're playing at 12th and Porter." We didn't even have a show at 12th and Porter. We got the show together at 12th and Porter because they were our friends,
Yeah.
and we put on that show, and we told everybody we had that place packed with all of our fans. I mean, you couldn't move in there. Toby didn't show up. We done told the owners, "Hey, Toby Keith's coming to your bar tonight." It was Paula and Jen, and they were like, at the end of the night, they're like, "Where was Toby?" I was like, "I don't know. He didn't come." Well, about that time, the phone rings, and I think it was our drummer's phone, Matthew, because he had kind of been running tour management stuff for us. And
Hmm.
they call and say, "Hey, can y'all come down to Printer's Alley to Third and Lindsley?" And he's like, "I guess why?" He's like, "Well, we couldn't make it up there, but we want y'all to come down here and play. We're going to get y'all up on the stage here." And so we had no clue what was going on at the time, but we packed up everybody. Crystal, the girl that was in our band, she had 102 fever that night. So we pack everybody up in our little, couple of cars. We go down to Printer's Alley. We walk in. They asked the band to let us use their instruments. We didn't have our normal gear, none of our normal stuff. Our guitar player was playing their guitar set up. Butter was playing their, resonator guitar that they had. And I had about this much room to dance and do what I do at the front of that stage. And we got up there and we played 3 songs and we got encored. And of course, I was going to do the encore. I love the stage. I love the spotlight. So I'm like, "Let's do it." And Butter goes, "No, let's leave them wanting more." I'm like, "Bro, we're getting encored in front of Toby and everybody." Now listen, none of our fans were there. It was a completely new crowd for us that was in Printer's Alley. That was not our normal demographic. I mean, we were young frat party type thing. This was all, older country music fans and things like that. And I just remember being there, and uh, Eddie and T Roy were there from Montgomery Gentry because they were big buddies with Toby. Edwin McCain was there, the
Oh
lead singer
wow.
of Smash Mouth, and Flinville Train, Carter's Court, and there was somebody else there. Maybe Danielle Peck. But we get done playing, and, we make our way back over there, and Toby goes, "Hey, why didn't y'all do the encore?" And Butter goes, we want to leave them wanting more. He goes, "I like that. Well, I'm going to sign y'all to a record deal, so don't sign with nobody else." He goes, "Let's just
Oh,
hang out."
wow.
So I didn't realize at the time, he knew that if he came to our show, everybody was going to love us because it was our fans. Toby was so smart. He's like, I need to see how the real world people react to these guys. Like, I need to see if they're going to
Right.
actually get people the way I think they'll get people. And we did. And so he signed us to the deal. And then they call us the next day. We're literally on our way to another frat party the day after. And we're heading down the road, and we get the call, and it's Taylor Schultz and TK Kimbrell. And they're like, "Hey, y'all need to put on another showcase next Wednesday at 3rd and Lindsley." And I'm like, "Wait, I thought we were already good." "Yeah, well, I mean, we need to bring some more people out to see y'all." So I'm calling 3rd and Lindsley. "Look, Toby Keith is coming to your bar." This is 2 weeks later or a week later, and they're like, "Are you sure?" I was like, I promise." So they already had somebody scheduled, but the other person said, "Well, we're not going on after them, or we're not going on before them. They have to go on before us and open for us." And Paula and Jen said, "That may not be the best idea. These guys are super entertaining. They're fun, and they're going to bring a crowd in that's coming to see them. If they go on before you, all those people are going to leave. But if you go on before them," they said, "No, we're not opening." So we didn't care. We didn't give a crap. But it was kind of funny. And so sure enough, we play the show. Toby gets on stage and he walks up, and they told us to invite other record labels. So we're like, crap, we're going to see. He gets up there and goes, "Hey, I just wanted y'all to know nobody else had the balls to sign these guys, but I'm signing them. We're going to put them out there. Trailer choir." We called us Trailer Park that first night. And he continued to call us the Trailer Park Choir pretty much our entire career. He goes, "We got the Trailer Park here tonight, y'all." And we come out there and played our show, and we killed it, and it was a great night. But after that, we pretty much, he kept his word to us. We got our record deal, and he signed us. And funny enough, Crystal was a hired backup singer. She wasn't part of. We were a duo, and we had hired her for a backup singer. But Toby thought, "You need her in the band. She makes it. She rounds it out, makes it this great little trio thing." And you don't argue with a guy that sold 45 million records. You just say yes, sir. And plus, we knew Crystal. We love Crystal. She had been here for years, putting in all the work. She was, I think, 10 years into being in this town. So I'd only been here for a few years, but Butter had been here for 18, and she had been here for 10. So between all of us, we definitely had 30 something years between us. So
It's so funny to think about the band that y'all opened for. I don't know if the owners of Third told them Toby's going to be there that night for this band, but imagine if you had kind of been a prima donna and said, we're not opening for them. And then you get there to get ready for your gig and Toby's introducing you guys. You're like,
yeah, I
what
never
the
even thought
hell?
about that. It's pretty funny, And I mean, I felt bad for him, and I tried. I can't remember the name of the band, and if I could, I wouldn't say it anyway, just because I wouldn't want to embarrass him. But
Yeah, I know.
uh, I just remember I felt bad for him. I tried to get people to kind of listen to him because it was their show, and I felt like we were intruding a little bit. But I also knew, hey, you got to take every shot you can get. And we didn't care if we
Amen.
went on before or after; it didn't matter to us. But uh, after we got done, a large amount of the crowd left, but a lot of people were just standing there talking and excited that couldn't believe Toby Keith was there. And Toby kind of, snuck out. He was up in the VIP section. He kind of snuck out before he was stayed for a little bit and talked to people, but he got to, get out of there because when Toby at that point in time, I think he was making more money than even Jay-Z. Like his tours were $88 million a year just from touring,
That's
not
right.
counting merchandise and the music and everything else. Just his touring dates alone was 88 million. So it was insane what he was pulling down at the time. And he was the biggest star in country music for sure at that point.
How did you fall in love with music? I kind of started with the trailer park. How did you fall in love with music?
So my favorite part of music is actually the creation of it, is the writing, part of it, because I love the fact that you either take things that you've heard or things that's actually happened to you, and then you put them on paper, and you got to tell a whole story in, 3.5 minutes, and of course now they want it in 2.5 minutes, but back in the day it was 3:11, right?
Yeah.
And that was the ideal radio time. Now it's 2:48, but my real first love of music actually come from movies like Rocky,
Oh,
realizing
really?
that what kind of movie would Rocky have been? I mean, Rocky would have always been a good movie, but if you didn't have that soundtrack behind it, if you didn't have that music setting the mood for every single scene and all that, so that part of musicality that kind of made my love there. But I was the kid that would go out there and sit in my mom's minivan, or she actually had an old blue Mercury Cougar back when I first started going out and listening to the radio. But I'd go out there and I'd turn on just turn the key to on, run the battery down, just listening to Kicks 96 every night, our little local radio station we had in Hickman County, Tennessee. I would just sit there and listen to songs, and I'd go and I'd call and request a song, and then I'd play my song, and I'd go and request another song. But while everybody else was inside watching TV or doing their homework, trying to get smarter, I would be out there listening to music. And I wasn't allowed to listen to country music when I was a kid. My mom was like, I don't want to listen to that hound dog crying in your beer stuff. She goes, I want to listen to real music. So the first music I remember hearing, I guess Leonard Skinner would be the very first music I remember hearing, but she listened to Pink Floyd and Journey and Boston and all that kind of stuff. And still love all those bands to this day. And, it kind of gave me that side of my music. And then that was my stepdad's kind of favorite stuff, so that's what we listened to in the car. But one day I remember, I think it was the Dollar General, might have been the Dollar Tree, but my mom was inside. Back then you could still leave your kids in the car,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't, I would never do that, but back then they didn't think nothing of it. Roll the windows down, leave the kids in the car, go in and do your shopping. But I was sitting there and I was flipping through this channels on the radio, and Thunder Rolls came on.
Oh yeah.
And I heard this sound. I'm like, dude, that sounds really cool. You heard the storm in the background. It wasn't just guitars playing. It was like a soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I heard this voice come across that was telling me this story, and it's like I hung on every single word. And I'm like, dude, now this is the kind of music I want to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately started spending. We'd get a $5 a week allowance, and it didn't matter what we did. I hauled hay from the time I was 8 years old. As long as I can remember, I throw hay bales, But we get $5 a week, and I'd take it back then. You could buy an A and B side single of a tape, and I had a little Walkman tape player, and I went and bought "Don't Take the Girl," and on the B side it had "Not a Moment Too Soon," which
Mm-hmm.
actually was the name of the record. I bought Vince Gill's "I Still Believe in You." Sorry, I think my battery is going dead. I bought Vince Gill's "I Still Believe in You," and I can't remember what was on the B side of that. And my first full record I bought was actually John Anderson's Seminole Winds. It was a purple. I can't remember if Seminole Winds was the title track, but it had Seminole Winds on it, and it was a purple tape. And I thought, wow, it's a purple tape. How cool is that? But I would spend my money every single week buying those, and just so I could listen to country music inside my little headphones while I mow the lawn or whatever I would do. But that's really how I fell in love with it. It was just all the story songs and getting to hear these things that uh, put you in situations that made you think, And I was just enamored with songs like Thunder Rolls, and A Boy Named Sue was one I eventually heard. It was a while down the road because it was an older song, but the story about the boy named Sue, it come back, and at the end of it, it's like, and I'd name him any damn thing but Sue, So I love the fact that you could have comedy, and then you could have serious, and you could have all this other stuff. I feel like every other genre of music is pretty much just what it is. Like rock is rock, and the content, maybe you understand it, maybe you don't. I think we had power ballads in the 80s and things like that, but rap, has kind of always been that. I love rap. I'm a huge rap fan. I do a lot of rapping myself. But in country music, you could have Garth Brooks one minute singing Friends in Low Places, and then turn around the next minute and sing The River or The Dance.
Yeah.
You could have Indian Outlaw by Tim McGraw, and then Don't Take the Girl. So it's like you could have all the sides of life. And I think that's what makes country music so different, at least back then, was it wasn't just one thing. It rocked. It had stories. It had emotional moments. It had comedy moments. It had all these things. And I think that's real life. People don't live the exact same experience every single day. They have good days, bad days, happy and sad. They have all those different emotions come in everyday life. And I feel like that's what country music does. Especially now, it seems like every other week you got two country artists fighting over who's more country than the other one, and I'm like, ain't none of y'all country, to be honest with you. I was like,
Isn't that fun?
if you want to sit there and spend your time fighting with another guy because you don't think he's country enough, to me that makes you not country anyway.
No shit. I mean, it's just crazy that the
I mean, I feel like
drama.
part of that. I feel like probably they're doing it. It might be their publicists working together to
Oh yeah.
create some stuff. But I look at the guys. What's that guy's name? Adcock or Gavin Adcock and Charlie Crockett.
Crockett.
And then there's another guy kind of got in the mix too. And I kind of see these
Oh,
headlines.
Paul Cawthon, maybe
Yeah,
something
Paul
like that.
Coffin. Um, all phenomenal, at what they do. All of them are talented guys. I mean, I guess because of that, it made me go and listen to their music because I didn't have a clue who any of them were. And, for me, I spend so much time listening to the songs that I write, trying to be like, okay, I can beat that line or whatever. Or I have a lot of friends, a lot of young artists that I do work with, and I'm like, hey, I'm listening to their songs while I'm riding down the road. I'm spending time, helping them develop their self and all that. And I'm a big fan of anybody that's willing to go out there and put theirself out there. Whatever package they bring to the table. There's a band right now called Landlaw. And I don't know if you've seen these guys. They got that song, Waking Up, Busting Your Butt, Trying to Get a Little Extra Pay, whatever. They got just decimated. I mean, when they put that song out, people come in just making fun of them, saying the meanest things. I've known these kids since they were 12 and 17, maybe. I can't remember the age. They were 12 and 16. But I've known these kids for so long now. They've played my little shows, and they're still learning. They still got a long way to go. But the guy calls me one day. He says, "Man, should I take this down? Everybody's just talking such mad, mean stuff, and maybe it ain't good enough." I said, "Bro," I said, "hang on a second. Do not take that down."
Mm-mm.
I said, "Who cares what they're saying? They're talking about you." I was like, they're sharing your stuff. You got guys. What was that one guy? Cole Wetzel was walking out to your music. They're playing your music on ESPN. I said all this other stuff. I was like, Sports Center is playing your stuff. Like, who cares if they're making fun of you as long as they're talking? I was like, your star is rising. Well, then I said, what you need to do is capitalize on it. I said, get every one of those clips, get all that proof. I said, when you start marketing yourself to places like, hey, our song's got 10 million streams on the internet, da 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 da. Now these boys are out there making $5,000 to $7,500 a night doing their music, and they know they still got a long way to go, and they're still learning. But they didn't let the bad comments take them down. And I think to me that shows great character and great sign of somebody that's willing to still go out there and put themselves on it. And guess what? They're getting better. Now
Yeah.
their harmonies are getting tighter. Their songwriting's getting better. Now they're starting to write. They had kind of a mixture of. There was definitely some artists that were kind of rude to them and mean to them and used their song to make fun of them, which I don't condone that. I think whatever a fellow artist, man, you got to have their back. Even if they're not up to your level or whatever. But there was a couple artists that really, took that moment to make fun of them. Then there was the guys like the Swan Brothers that said, "Hey, man, we want to help y'all write a better song." And the Swan Brothers took them in and wrote a song with them, And like I said, I've
Yeah.
written songs with them. I've known these kids, for 9, 10 years now, that I've known these kids. And I'm proud of them for sticking to their guns. But yeah, it's funny to watch all the controversy. I mean, I don't care. I'm a fan of all music. I think everybody's talents are different. There's certain music I'd rather listen to than others. But like, I'm not a big fan of screaming death metal. But I respect that talent because, dude, if I did that for one song, my voice would be shredded to pieces. These
Oh
guys do it
yeah.
all night long, and the next day, and the
All
next day, and the
night.
next day. So, like I said, I just feel like, man, your art, however you create. Uh, I just think it's cool to watch people put themselves out there because it takes some balls to, especially in today's internet, knowing that somebody's going to say a lot of mean stuff. These boys were getting literal death threats because of this song. That broke my heart for them. I mean, like people saying, you need to run.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
You need to run out in traffic. You need to jump off the roof at Chiefs like Morgan Wallen through the chair. That's what people were actually saying to these kids that are literally 19 and 22 years old. I'm just like, golly, man.
There. If Gavin Adcock has 2 million people listening to his music and Charlie Crockett has 2 million people listening to his music, guess what, boys? You both captured your own market.
You both
You
winning.
got your own audience.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane and enjoy the ride while it lasts because it might not last forever.
No, it won't. It don't matter how good you are. I mean, everybody reaches the pinnacle of what they can do, and it starts coming down. It as much as Morgan Wallen is the king of the mountain right now. At some point, now he'll always make good money doing what he does, but at some point he won't be the number one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even Toby knew that. I think all the biggest of the big guys knew that. And hopefully they do. I think it's the same thing when you think about an NFL quarterback. Tom Brady for all those years was the greatest of the great, and even to his final season, I think he still threw for almost 5,000 yards. But at some point, you have to be like, "Hey, I can't do what I used to do. I can't do it as proficiently as I used to do it." It doesn't mean that you stop putting on shows. I mean, Merle Haggard, I played with him on one of his last, shows. We played in Iowa together, and the guy still crushed it. But he had to read all of his words off a teleprompter. He just got to that point where he couldn't maintain that. All the words inside his head anymore. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm glad for all those guys that are crushing it and doing well. And I feel like most of that's probably put together by the publicist to be like, hey, we need to have controversy between y'all, kind of like the old school East and West rap battles back in the day, you know. Um, but I mean, I thought about joining in and be like, all right, listen, I'll challenge both of y'all to a wrestling match at the same time. We can do it in overalls or we can do it in Jello, whatever you want to do. Whoever wins gets all the followers. Okay,
I'm betting my money on you on that one, brother.
I think I can take them. So,
Uh, you brought up Toby again, and I think I meant to ask you, what was Toby Keith like?
oh man, I get emotional talking about it. He changed my life. You know, he saw something in us that I think most people would have looked around and say, I get emotional talking about him, but he looked at us and saw this crazy group that everybody else would say, no, that's too wild, that's too out there. And he said, I want to take that on the road with me. And well, man, when we got out there with him, he took us under his wing, man. He taught us so much stuff, and he didn't teach you by saying, "Hey, I'm going to teach you this lesson right now." He taught you about you're in a situation, how do you get through it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's the best way I try to teach my kids is like I don't try to just solve the problem for them every time. I try to, I'll be there for them in case they can't solve the problem, but I try to make sure I give them enough time to focus on how can I solve this problem myself? How can I get out
Mm-hmm.
of this situation myself? Man, he was just the best. I mean, I watched the guy do so many things that he wouldn't let the publicist put out there. I watched him do things for philanthropy that most people would never believe. I watched him take care of military people in ways that you would never believe. He didn't just talk the talk; he walked the walk when it came to all that. I think his biggest dream at that point, obviously, his family was most important to him, but he wanted somebody else to make it. He wanted to be responsible for helping another artist get to that top level, and I think obviously he worked with Trey Sackins. He had some other folks that he was doing. Most people don't realize that he was responsible for Taylor Swift. And it breaks my
Yeah,
heart.
what is the story? Because I've never understood it. What's the story with Toby and bringing on Taylor
Well, Toby
Swift?
owned 44% of Big Machine and Show Dog.
Okay.
And so he was the majority shareholder of both those companies. And he was the one that was the final yes on Taylor Swift to even come and be on the label. Now, he ain't the one that found her. I think it was, what's his name?
Scott Borchetta?
No, not Scott. Rick Barker. I think Rick Barker was the one I believe that originally found her and brought her to the table. Now, I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on it. I mean, you can quote me on it, then I could be wrong, but I'm okay with being wrong. Um, Scott loved her. Toby loved her because she was a songwriter. Toby loved her, and Toby knew that girl was going to be a star. I mean, but Toby was the final say so on yes, we're signing her. We're going to put the money behind her. We're going to put her out there. And there's a clip. You can find a clip of her telling that story. That's why it really hurt my heart because Taylor was always nice to me. We were on sister labels. We were on Show Dog. She was on Big Machine. But a lot of the parties were together, so we were around each other, quite often. And she was always a sweetheart. I never seen her be rude to anybody or anything. I'm sure she has her moments like anybody does, but it broke my heart when she didn't say anything when he passed away. The fact that she didn't put anything up. Like this guy gave you your opportunity and put you even above himself, really, um, when it came to how much attention was given on the label because they knew what she was. They knew she was
Hmm.
the it star, and she's the biggest star. I don't know if there's anybody with a better, stronger fan base than her. And so, yeah, it kind of hurt me a little bit. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know what her reasoning behind it is. I know that obviously politically they were on different parts of the spectrum and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that had a role to play in it, or maybe maybe there was a bad experience in there somewhere along the way. I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like everybody that's in the modern world of country music owes Toby Keith a big old debt of gratitude because he was the one that was willing to, go against the grain and go against the mold and put out songs that talked about, real life stuff like, PMS and, you think about your medical charts and when you start. Like nobody else would have said that back in the day. Nobody would have talked to a girl in country music and been like, "How do you like me now?"
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I just think for the people that have a modern voice and where country music is at, you owe a big debt of gratitude to Toby Keith. And as a person, he was more of. It's kind of funny. He was a little bit of an introvert when he first got around people until he got to know you and trusted you. He wouldn't open up as much. But buddy, whenever he did, he was funny. He's always cracking jokes. I mean, he could rap as good as anybody I've ever heard. I got to see sides of him that I think, we're blessed. I feel like I'm blessed to get to spend that time with him and see different things of what people see Toby as. And a lot of times people could take him as being almost I don't want to say a prick, but they would see him as, well, he don't want to talk to nobody. Well, that wasn't the way it was. Like, he just needed to know that you weren't going to be the kind of person that was going to, phone's getting low on battery. He just needed to know that you
Okay.
were the kind of person he could even trust to be around, that he could open up and be himself around and crack a joke and have fun with you and not feel like you're going to be so soft that you couldn't handle it.
Okay. Then it's great to hear someone that was actually close to Toby kind of speak about what he was like. So that was great for me to hear,
Yeah,
because the older I get, the more I've been into his catalog.
great.
I was a huge fan of Should Have Been a Cowboy and a lot of the stuff he did for the '90s in the '90s. But man, he carried country in the aughts, and sometimes I forget about how vast that catalog was.
Oh, it was so huge. And he wrote, I want to say he was a writer on 23 of his hits. I think he
Wow.
had, I can't remember, I think it was only 17 number ones. And I think he was a writer on 12 of those. And I think he wrote Should Have Been a Cowboy by himself. Um, but I think he wrote on 23 of his actual hits, that some of them were number one, some wasn't. I mean, Red Solo Cup, he didn't write at all, but it was only number three, even though it was probably the biggest song, at least top five of his biggest songs of all time.
I know.
And that was written by the Warren Brothers and the Beavers Brothers. He wasn't afraid to cut an outside song. With Toby, best song won. That's the way it was. It just so happened that he was a phenomenal songwriter, and he knew how to bring in other people that were great songwriters with him to say, "Hey, I got this idea. How can we make it better?" Guys like Scotty
Yeah.
Emmerich, Bobby Pinson, some of these dudes. I'm trying to think. There's another big songwriter with him in the beginning. But he was smart. He knew where talent was, and he knew how to work with those people.
Well, since your battery is getting low, I just had one more thing. If you have enough
I got enough.
battery, I'll
Yeah.
just ask real quick. I love you, Big Vinny. I love how you're inspirational. I love how positive you are. So I thought I would end by just asking you advice to people on what it takes to believe in yourself and the drive to find sustained success throughout your life.
Well, I think belief in yourself follows a path that first goes through finding faith in Jesus Christ. I'm a huge believer, and and don't get me wrong, I crack stupid jokes and say goofy stuff and all that. But I mean, I firmly believe that if you're ever gonna love yourself the way you need to love yourself, you got to find that spiritual relationship with God, and you got to get to that level on that, because you got to realize at some point that everything in this world is bigger than just your life. It's what happens after this life and everything else. And when you can kind of map that, to the side and say, okay, my ultimate goal isn't about how much money I have in the bank. My ultimate goal isn't about, what kind of car I drive or the house I live in. All those things are great. I'm not against having a bigger house and a nicer car and all that, if that's what you want. I'm a simple guy. Like, I can live in a trailer down by the river and be happy, but me and my wife have different opinions on that. But I think once you realize that, the number one thing in life is you're supposed to help bring other people to the kingdom. You're supposed to help bring other people to Jesus Christ and all that. And all this worldly stuff only lasts for 80 years. 100 years from now, nobody's ever going to know you existed. I mean, they'll know
Mhm.
Toby Keith existed a little bit, but even now there's people that don't know who Elvis Presley was. You know what I mean? Already. And it hadn't even been 100 years. So imagine 100 years after you die, or even just 100 years from now, nobody's ever going to know you existed. The house you live in may not even be there. And if it is, it'll have somebody else living in it. The car you had to be old and rusted and in some junk pile somewhere. None of that stuff matters in this world. So when you can realize that, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to get the things that you desire in this life, but it means that there's things that are more important than the kind of money you make. So believing in yourself, I think, comes through believing in Jesus Christ and through giving your life to Him ultimately, and sacrificing some of your desires and some of the things you want. I think, everybody battles sins. Everybody battles whatever their desire is on a daily basis, and the devil knows what that desire is, and he's going to try and push that to you. Whether it's alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs or fame or whatever those things are, it's going to be peddled to you in a way that makes you feel like, hey, this is more important. But at the end of the day, if you're rooted in the name of Jesus Christ and you're rooted in the name of God and in the Word of God, then you're going to make sure that you go out there every day, and no matter what happens, I'm going to take that message with me till the day I die, and then hopefully all the way up into heaven. So,
Amen, brother.
so That's the best. That's the best I could give you. Other than that, do be around people. The kind of advice I give people is don't be around people that take your joy away from you. It took me a long time to learn that. I was the kind of person I wanted everybody to like me. I was like, man, I'm big. I'm Bigg Vinny, and I'm the nicest guy in the world, and I wanted everybody to like me. And I had to learn at some point that it's okay to let people go out of your life. It doesn't matter if it's friends, family members, whatever. If they're taking your joy away, if they're not, working with you towards the common goal, it doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean that you don't pray for them or love them. It just means that there's times in your life that you have to let some people go, and they're going to try to make you feel bad about it. And there's a guy I listen to, Trent Shelton. I don't know if you ever listen to him, but he says, "Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for cutting them off when they handed you the scissors." And so I try to look at that and really live by that, because I think so many times I continued to give and give and give to people that weren't willing to give anything to me. And so now I pray for those people, love those people. If I saw them, if they was on the side of the road, I pull over and help them fix a tire or whatever. But I don't let them in my life on a daily basis. So that's some advice I could give you. Surround yourself with people that bring you joy. It doesn't matter what kind of money they make. It doesn't matter what kind of car they drive. It matters what kind of presence they bring into your life. And like I said, if you get around more like-minded people that believe in Jesus, I think you'll find more of that. Doesn't mean you won't find some bad ones in there, because I found those too. But anyway, that's my best advice I can give y'all. I'm Bigg Vinny.
Appreciate you so much, brother. We're going to end it there since your battery is getting low and we got to let this thing upload. So I really appreciate you coming on. Hope y'all have enjoyed this one.
Hey, much love, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, brother. I really appreciate your time. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, you too.